Namaste. Welcome to the Yoga for Unity and Wellbeing program. We hope you've been having an excellent morning practice these days. Today, in our lecture series, we have Sri Rishi Ranjan. Mr. Rishi Ranjan has been a practitioner of the heartfulness meditation method for over 25 years now. What is most interesting about Rishi Ranjanji is that, along with his work in yoga and his series Ek Rishi Ki Baatein, he is a software engineer who works with IBM and has been in the field of corporate management for several years. Let us join Rishi Ranjanji today as he speaks about Raja Yoga in the heartfulness way.
Hello friends, thanks for joining this webinar on Introduction to Raj Yoga. In this session, we are going to talk about what is yoga, what are the different yoga schools like Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga and Raj Yoga. We'll go into details of Raj Yoga, what is the objective of Raj Yoga, and what are the different steps being laid out into Raj Yoga. Now let us start this session by a prayerful heart for 2 minutes. Let us close our eyes and make a prayer. O Lord, I don't know you. I have not seen you. But now I want to experience you. I know it is only my own self-created world which is not allowing me to experience you. But you are the only God and power to bring us up to that stage. So in this session, there are many thoughts and concepts we are talking about. So we have prepared some presentation which we'll be sharing with you during the session. So let's start by paying our love and respect and remembrance to three great saints, spiritual masters, and global guides who have been great exponents of Raj Yoga. Swami Vivekanand ji, Sri Ramchand ji of Shahjahanpur, whom we call Babuji, and Sri Kamlesh D. Patel Daji, who is the current global guide and spiritual master of Heartfulness Mission. So what is yoga? Yoga has been defined as how we connect ourselves to the higher self. Yoga means union of my lower self with the higher self. Since beginning, man has been trying to find that permanent happiness. But he is looking for that infinity in finiteness. He is looking for that eternity in temporal things. He is looking for experiencing a unity in a world of multiplicity. Yoga means we connect to that higher self, which is present in us as human being, to experience that unity, oneness, and supreme bliss. We remember Swami Vivekanand ji has said, "Arise, awake, and rest not till the goal is achieved." Now, often I wonder why he has kept awake after arise. Arise means we have already risen up, we have gotten up. Then what is that awakening? Even if our body is up, our body is in a waking condition. What is that awakening which he is asking us to be aware of? Arise, awake, and rest not till the goal is achieved. This awakening is of our Sukshma Sharir, is of our consciousness. When our consciousness expands, then we experience something which is blissful, something which is complete, something which is infinite, something which is eternal, and that is our true nature. So, this awakening is the purpose of yoga. And then he says, stop not till the goal is achieved. Now, here is another great formula. I think the only thing we need, or one of the fundamental things we need to be in awakened state, is be restless about it. Now, it is evident that until we realize ourselves as the absolute, this awakening will only happen if we experience ourselves as something absolute, something changeless, something which is expansive. Unless we experience that absolute, we will not be able to go over this process of awakening. Now, there are various systems being laid out which helps us in process of this awakening, this yoga, the condition of unity. What are these different processes being laid out? Now, the yoga, as we have seen in lot many lectures by great thinkers and philosophers over the past couple of weeks, they have been kind of helping us to understand different school of thought, different history of yoga, right? Now, it starts with Karma Yoga. What is Karma Yoga? Yoga has many school of thoughts. Depending on the question you want to solve, depending on the process you want to take, yoga gives you that answer. In Karma Yoga, the problem we are trying to solve is a selfishness of impure mind. Karma Yoga is dealing with the action field of action. All human beings are always in this field of action. Now, Karma Yoga tells us that we can achieve this unity, this condition of yoga by perfect deliverance of our action. So that these action helps us in purifying the mind rather than making our mind impure. Any action has a worker, a work, and an idea of work getting done. Now, if you do an action, if you do work with the idea of worker being me and work being done by me, and then comes the impression of that work on me, right? So the mind, which is in its pure state, is just performing its action as a witness, becomes impure by the impression of the work being done. Karma Yoga is purifying the mind by means of work. Therefore, Karma Yoga asks us that do the work without any desire to enjoy the fruits of the work. Leave the results of the work. How is it possible that we leave the result of the work and do the work? And that's what Karma Yoga is all about. Karma Yoga says that we can achieve this by being as a witness of the work, or think that work is being done by the God or by the nature itself. So the load, the burden of the impression of the work doesn't fall onto our mind, but we are a process through which the work is getting done. Now, this is, if you see in Bhagavad Gita, the first few chapters are all about Karma Yoga, where Lord Krishna is telling Arjun that you are having this, the idea, the willpower is not there with you to go ahead and do the work, but realize that you are not doing the work. Work is getting done through you. And that's the idea of Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga is of lot much relevance, specifically nowadays when we see from all around we are doing the work, and then we are going through the impressions of the work on us. Can we have a process through which we get rid of the impressions of the work and use the process of work to achieve that unity? Now, next comes Gyan Yoga. Now, Gyan Yoga says the problem we are trying to solve is we are lost, we are living in the world of multiplicity. It is because we don't know our real true nature. If we really know our true nature, then we will stop being left into the world of ignorance. It is the lack of knowledge which is creating this problem. So, if the knowledge is perfected, if we give that information and we contemplate over it and we realize it. So, if we realize that knowledge, then the illusion will disappear. So, the metaphor goes that a rope and a snake. Somebody sees rope as a snake. The moment I realize it is a rope, the snake disappears. And that is Jnana Yoga. The moment I have that knowledge that's only the rope exists, the snake disappears, the illusion disappears. So, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. It says there's only one Brahman. It is all pervading. It is infinite. Infinite means it doesn't go through the limitations of time. It was Brahman was the substratum of everything. Now, 500 years back, will be there after 500 years and 1000 years. It is going beyond the limit of space. It is not like Brahman is only in India. Brahman is in US, Brahman is in the whole world, in the whole universe. It's beyond the time of space. So beyond time and space, that Brahman is what is our actual identity. We are not different than Brahman. Now, once we get this knowledge, this information, we contemplate over it. We put logic into it to see whether it works or doesn't work. And then after that, we give up all further argumentation, which creates obstacle in realizing the truth. So it's another part of yoga which says the true knowledge of your real nature is if you contemplate over it, you will help in achieving that state and the condition of unity. The third part is bhakti yoga. Now, what is the problem we are trying to solve here? The problem we are trying to solve here is attachment to the material world. Bhakti yoga is one of the easiest yoga which is also being said. It is because what here we do is we change the object of attachment. We just don't leave the object of attachment in the external material world. We make that object of attachment to the Lord and the God inside. So our attachment which was there outside is now slowly shifted to the attachment inside, to the Lord inside. So bhakti has an object, is God, and bhakti means devotion. So my attachment to the Lord and God inside helps me in achieving the unity, the state of unity. It helps me in losing the sense of separateness. I'm not separate. So how does it work? First, once we create the idea of the Lord, of the object of our attachment inside, we become restless that we are not yet one with them, with the Lord inside. Once we start getting restless, the outward attachment slowly lose their grip. Once we become more and more moving towards that, the object inside, the Lord inside, this fire of restlessness makes us go more and more towards the object inside, right? It is also said in different places, zikr and fikr. Zikr means, my gross body is saying that name again and again. It is going to the places where that names is being said, right? Remembrance of the Lord. Fikr is the internal process, right? I'm slowly kind of meditating and remembering my Lord inside. So this process of bhakti yoga helps to achieve that condition of union just by changing the object from outside to inside. There are different bhavas of bhakti. So I can have a relationship with the Lord inside, right? Like a friend, Sakha bhav, like Arjun had with Krishna, right? Like a beloved, like the Gopikas had with Lord Krishna, right? Like Vatsalya bhav, like Yashoda Ma had for Lord Krishna. Dasya bhav, like Lord Hanuman had for Rama, right? Or Shant bhav, like Bhishma had for Lord Krishna. Shant bhav, he was not expressing it enough, but the heart was full with love and devotion. So there are many ways in which we can create this bhakti, the sense of surrender, the sense of love for the Lord inside. Now the fourth part is Raj Yoga. What Raj Yoga says is, the problems we are trying to solve here is the scattered individual mind. Raj Yoga says the mind itself is the instrument. It is connected to the cosmic mind. But the way we are using the mind, it is scattered and it has created an individuality in itself. It's individual mind, which is creating the idea of multiplicity. So, and as we go forward, we will see this yoga fits in with every one of the other yogas. The science of Raj Yoga, in the first place, proposes to give men such a means of observing the internal states, and the instrument is the mind itself. The power of mind are like rays of light being dissipated. When they are concentrated, they illumine everything. It is what they are trying to say is when we make this scattered mind converge at a place, it comes to its natural meditative state. And in that meditative state, we see lot many things internally. We have lot much perceptions about us and the nature around us. It is as if the sun is rising. So there is a darkness before, we cannot feel and see anything before. But as the sun is rising, we see so many things around us. Similarly, a meditative mind helps us in creating that inner perceptions about us. And once we are more and more aware of what is happening inside, we start getting into a state of union, because now it also teaches us how to listen to the voice of inner self. So let's see more about the Raj Yoga. So what does Raj Yoga say? Raj Yoga says humanity was akin to divinity at the source of creation. There was no separation. The humanity we see now was closely in resonance with the divinity. But over a period of time, it assumed a grosser form because of the various complexities which we have put in ourselves. You know, a good idea here is if you get up in the morning, right, or if a child is born, when they are just starting and entering the life, we see they have all the divine qualities present in them. But over a period of time, when they are child, when they grow up, the ideas of their parents, the environment around them, create some actions, create some jerks into their mind, which kind of deviates them from the path they were having, and they kind of go into a different human being. They have a different identity which develops into them. Whereas when they were born, they were very close, akin to the divinity. Now, humanity was akin to divinity, but it is because we are living our life in a manner that creates these complexities in us. We forget, or we stop the effect of that higher cosmic mind onto our mind itself. So, what is the objective of Raj Yoga? The main object of Raj Yoga is to realize personally the truth depicted in the teachings of the great ancient sages. Now, in all other yoga, if you see, there is a belief, there is a faith which has to be done first, and post that faith, we start experiencing or start realizing few facts. Raj Yoga kind of reverses the whole process. It says you first experience who you are, the first experience the lordship in your heart, first experience your own divine nature, and then the idea of knowledge, the idea of devotion, the idea of doing a legitimate action will automatically develops into you. Why? Because experience is higher than any knowledge. So Raj Yoga is the old system or science followed by great rishis to help in realizing our true self or God itself. As Daji has said, yoga is not religion, not philosophy, but an experience. Yoga doesn't teach us to do anything. Yoga makes us experience who we are. And Swami Vivekananda has also said, the teacher of the science of yoga, therefore, declared that religion is not only based upon the experience of ancient times, but that no man can be religious until he has the same perceptions himself. So the great founder of religions have really perceived something. And that perception they have codified into text, and that text is being followed as religion. And all these texts are basically saying follow the dharma, be one in with nature, go towards that union, the state of union. But it was their perception. Now Swami Vivekananda challenges us and say no man can be religious until he has the same perception himself. That means we are just reading religion, we are just trying to understand religion, but the actual effect of the perception of that union is not there. So yoga is the science which teaches us how to get these perceptions, and that's what Raj Yoga is all about. It teaches us how to get these perceptions. So it is Raj Yoga and Raj Yoga alone that can lead us to our ultimate destination or the highest point of human approach, where we are in perfect harmony with nature. assuming your absolute and pure form. Now, let us discuss something about the purity. What do we say as purity? And what is impure? Purity, suppose something is impure, what will we do? Suppose my hand is impure, what will we do? We will not add anything from outside called purity onto it, but we will remove anything and everything which was not part of the hand. When those things which were not part of the hand is removed and my hand is restored to its original state, to its natural state, it becomes pure. And we are calling it purity, right? So purity and impurity are relative terms. Purity, it's the original state. Impurity means the farther away I am from that original state, right? And it is also said impurity means, if we say it little slowly, I am purity, right? So if you remove the I am, the idea of my own identity, my idea of my own ego, everything is pure, right? Or we become pure. Now, Raj Yoga teaches us how we move from this state of impurity to purity, from the state where we are in a grosser form to our original state. Now, let's go through a few definitions which will help us in understanding, the theme of Raj Yoga a little better. What is man? Who we are, right? Now, man, I think the human existence is a very great opportunity. Why do I say so? Because man is a bipolar being. It has got its root nearest to the base and the other end towards the world. That means we are connected to the source, we are connected to the Lord, and we have connected to the world also, the outside world. Now, if somehow the individual mind, which is constantly focusing on the external world, gets molded towards its cosmic mind, it begins to appear in its true color. And that's where the condition of union happens. In no other existence, neither in the plant kingdom, mineral kingdom, or animal kingdom, these two things, humanity and divinity, coexist. It's only in human existence that humanity and divinity coexist. Now, let's try this through some logic. It's only human beings who have a spectrum. We can behave like animals, we can behave like humans, or if we are imbued with love, if we are connected to the source, we have this opportunity to behave like divine. So we have this spectrum, and we would have seen, right? If we have anger, if we have jealousy, if we have possessiveness, right? We behave sometimes like animals. If we listen to our heart, if we go by the inspirations of our heart, we behave like humans. And if we practice to further kind of move towards purity, if we are imbued with love, if we are inspired by higher qualities which are there in us, we feel that we have superseded our own existence and we have started behaving like divine beings. So what is driving all this? It's the consciousness in us. It's the operating conditions in us. They drive these behaviors, right? So what we have this opportunity for is we start with wherever we are as a human being, but in this life itself we can take a quantum leap towards that divine being and have that state of unity and govern ourselves through that higher phenomena. Now, divinization of man, and that's the promise of Raj Yoga, right? It is promised that through routine practice of meditation, and we'll go into details of what meditation is all about. It's really aim at removing these immoderations, these complexities around us, Therefore, by the action of our will, so as to keep up the balance, our balance is disturbed, right? We are moving away from fear. We are moving towards temptations. This is kind of creating an imbalance in us. Through process of meditation, we kind of converge this scattered mind at one place. And when the scattered mind is coming and resting at one place, we start getting transformed. We start getting inspired by divine qualities in ourselves. Thus, the humanity in us begins to get transformed into divinity. The divine nature in man is taking over the lower phenomena of human nature, of the animal nature. When the divine nature of man supersedes the human nature, that is called divinization of man, and that is the goal of Raj Yoga. Now, with that much of information, let's go and see how we can at least tie all these four yogas together and see whether how it works, right? So the greatest, I would say, the management lesson or the way of living life, right, is I feel is this shlok in Bhagavad Gita. So in a battlefield, Arjuna is having issues. He's not having courage. The Karma Yoga is not giving him that state of union. He's getting attached to different things. He's having different knowledge in his mind, right? So, what does Lord Krishna tells him? Lord Krishna tells him, Yoga stha kuru karmani, sangam tyakta dhananjaya, siddha asiddha samo bhutva, samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga stha kuru karmani. Be stationed into the condition of yoga. Be stationed into the condition of yoga stha. Be there in your higher phenomena. Be connected to your cosmic mind. Be connected to the state of oneness. Yoga stha kuru karmani. Now, from that condition, do your job, do your work. You don't come here and do your work. You be there, and from there you do your work. Yoga stha kuru karmani. Be stationed in the condition of yoga, which prevents this scattering of mind, and it creates a sthit pragya, equanimity condition in you. Yoga stha kuru karmani. Now, when you are stationed into the condition of yoga, sangam tyakta dhananjaya. Sangam means attachment. You are now attached to different things here, right? Now, this attachment to different things, is creating these issues for you, right? So, from that condition of permanent attachment to the absolute, from the state of union, you will not be attached to all this because you are stationed into that condition of yoga. From that condition of yoga, you will not be attached to the other attachments which are there into this material world, right? Yoga stha kuru karmani, sangam tyakta dhananjaya. Now, the first is Raj Yoga, which is you be stationed into the condition of yoga, do your work from that condition of yoga. Then sangam tyakta, your attachment is not to a higher, absolute. Now, the last one says siddha asiddha samo bhutva. Because you're operating from a lower phenomena, you kind of give a meaning to what should be done, what should not be done, but which creates this illusion for you. But once you're stationed into the highest, your own self, all these illusory perceptions will fall off, and your success and failure will not have effect on you. It will not give impression to you. The idea of worker dissolves, the idea of work also slowly get dissolved, right? So it's a great, slow in which I think all four parts of yoga are coming together and, kind of helping Arjun to achieve that state of union. Now, in Raj Yoga, we generally start with meditation, right? So, what is the underlying philosophy for it? Because we find our mind is scattered, it is always busy with the worldly things. If you're not doing anything, our thoughts seems to have wings in the leisure hours. We are always into this disorder, right? Now, how to get our mind to come and rest at a place is what meditation is all about. So, because when we remain in contact with the ideas and thoughts of different kinds, they leave impression on us, and now this creates further complexities, and mind becomes more and more scattered, and it creates a lot of imbalances in us, right? And that makes us move away from the state of unity because we are going towards the world of multiplicity. The condition of yoga is not getting formed in us. So we start with meditation, dhyan. Now, in Raj Yoga, now let's go towards what are the steps of Raj Yoga, right? So, as each science requires certain preparation, as each science has its own method, until we follow that method, we can never understand that science. So, in Raj Yoga, is like a science. It has definitive steps, which we will go over quickly. And by following those steps, we'll be able to see how we are able to achieve that condition of yoga in us, the condition of union in us. Where does these the steps come from? And these steps comes from Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So we know Sesh Patanjali. He organized the essence of Raj Yoga into a simple and systematic form in his short but great work called Yoga Sutra. These Yoga Sutra of Patanjali is a collection of Sanskrit sutras on the theory and practice of yoga. Now let's go quickly over what these Yoga Sutras are, and we'll not go in much detail. It's just an introductory class, but this is good to know at least. The first sutra 1.2, it says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga means, and the process which is going to laid out is helping us to prevent the scattering of mind. It's the restraining of the field of our consciousness from fluctuating and taking various forms. Various forms. Chitta vritti. Vritti means worlds, right? A good idea here is if in this lecture, right, and after this lecture somebody says, "Hey Rishi, you did a great job," or he says, "Hey Rishi, it didn't go well," right? Now what is happening? If I'm not conditioned into my state of yoga, these words which are coming from outside will create a vritti in my mind, will create a whirl in my mind. Now this will start creating illusion in me, right? So what yoga means, I'm stationed into my condition, and that's the promise of these steps, Ashtanga Yoga. Now when we are stationed into the state of yoga, then what happens? Tada drishtu swarupe avasthanam. At the time of meditation, when we are stationed into the state of yoga, the seer rests in its original sense, its own true nature. Right? In that meditative state, in that state of union, I will be in my own true nature. Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. Then only I will realize my true nature. If I am stationed, I am resting at one place. Yogaschitta vritti nirodha. Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. So unless we are not in the state of yoga, we are not able to see our true self. What do we see? And that's the second last part. Vritti sarupya mitratra. At all other time, the seer, the observer in us appears to take the characteristics of the fluctuating forms of our thought patterns. So we are by nature not angry, but anger comes to us. Vritti sarupyam. When the anger comes to us, we assume the form of anger and we become angry. Right? So there is a difference. There is the observer and the observed. Right? The observer in us is experiencing the anger. But if you are not stationed into the observer itself, we assume the form of anger. Now the illusion of anger is created. I become angry. Right? Now the yoga help us to be stationed into the center of my being. Now the Ashtanga Yoga is a practice adopted for bringing the consciousness to its true state, into its original form, and that's what the Ashtanga Yoga is, right? It has 8 steps: yamas, niyama, asana, pranayam. These 4 steps are for the, we can say, the external body. It makes us ready for something which we have to do inside, and that comes the last 4 steps: pratyahar, dharan, dhyan, and samadhi. It's for the mind, for that the internal evolution. So with these complete 8 steps, we make a perfect march towards that state of oneness which is there inside us. Heartfulness meditation kind of takes care of all these steps in a very systematic manner. We'll have further sessions on efficacy of Raj Yoga where we'll go into details of all these the practices of heartfulness meditation. But it promises dhyan, samadhi through its practices, which takes care of yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharan, dhyan, and samadhi. The first one is yama. Yama means something, removal of something. It's like death of something. What does this death stands for? And Daji in beautifully has made this whole Ashtanga Yoga very simple for helping us to understand through his various articles in different heartfulness magazines and literature. Yama, he says, is meaning death of the, is not the death of the physical body, but the body which is self-created, which gives us an identity, right? It is the ego, the death of the ego in us, right? The self-created, accumulated identity which hides our true form. These are the layers of persona we create among ourselves. Our original identity is hidden because of the various identities we put in. So, yama means removal of those unwanted habits. It makes us transcend and refine our subtle body. It makes us pure, expansive, without any individual heaviness. So, what are these, five yamas? One is ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. If you are filled with love, we will never feel like being having a violent behavior towards anybody, right? Love all, hurt none. The last thing we should do is try to hurt anybody. That's a strict no. That creates so many issues with us. So let's stop having knowingly hurting anybody. Ahimsa. Satya, truthfulness. Let's not have any other persona. Let's present ourselves the way we are. It is as it is. We are the child of God. We are presenting ourselves the way we are. There is no hypocrisy, the layer of on us. We are presenting ourselves the way we are. Through this, we allow the nature also to work with us, because when we are in our true form, we resonate with nature. So nature starts working on us and helping us become pure and pure. So it's like a it's like a formula which is given to us. Not only we help being truthful, being presenting ourselves the way we are, we allow nature also to help us. Honesty, and it is also called non-stealing. Now, if you are going ahead with, filled with love, we are presenting ourselves in truthfulness. Non-stealing means, we should not take anything which is not ours. Nature has a universal process. In that universal mechanism, everything is given to everybody in based on their need. Now, if I go ahead and take something from other, right, which is not based on my need, but I'm just stealing it, right, I'm doing something which is not allowed by the laws of nature. Moderation of senses, brahmacharya. That means have our senses imbued in the Brahman. That creates the moderation of senses. Our senses should dwell into that condition of Brahman. Now, moderation of senses, if you see, is very much required every day, because when we open the TV, the radio, there's a lot of breaking news. Our mind, our senses get into those phenomena and they think it is real, and that kind of creates a lot of different identities. Our mind gets more and more scattered. Aparigraha, right? Attitude of non-possessiveness. It's also called non-greediness. Now, this prevents further creation of desires and likes and dislikes in us, right? So if you're always greedy, right, I mean, we are thinking of something more to have, thinking of adding more and more layers on us. Now that idea adds to a lot of other disturbances in us, makes us move away from a right and a virtuous path. So these five yamas helps us to remove the unwanted habits in us: ahimsa, satya, aste, brahmacharya, and aparigraha. Niyama. Now, think of yama as less and less. We are making it less and less of the external phenomena, external likes and dislikes. Niyama is like more and more of less and less. These are the qualities which enhances the truthfulness in us, enhances the divinity in us, right? Enhances our true form. So yama denotes destruction of all that is unwanted. Niyama is the embracing of the required qualities in the heart. It provides us with the focus to mold our living to such a high level that we are able to radiate the fragrance of the inner state. First is Shach, means purity of body and mind. What we are trying to achieve through this yoga is a state of highest purity. We should at least resonate that through our bodily purity and our purity of our mind. Once we start having those qualities, we will see our progress becomes much and more faster and faster. So purity of body and purity of mind, both are equally important. We should breed good thoughts. We should always have our heart is inclined towards doing pure things. Santosha, contentment and inner happiness. A seeker is always aware that the real contentment is inside and there is focus on the inner happiness. He's not looking outside for getting more and more, because the outside world creates a transitory contentment but a long term discontentment. So the inner happiness has to be looked upon. Tapas. Tapas is like self-discipline. When we live our lives, even in our day-to-day household life, we don't have to go to jungle to create a true penance. If we live our life in a disciplined manner, it creates that fire of discipline in us. Tapas also prevents us. This discipline also prevents us. It's like a vaccine against all the unwanted things which can come to us, right? So discipline has to be there into our lives. We have to live our life in a way which is pure, which is inwardly happy, and tapas means ensuring that it happens repeatedly. Swadhyay, study of the self. Study of the self. Now a raj yogi is always thinking and looking inside and studying the self. In what manner, in what conditions do I have a state of union in me, and in what conditions I'm losing that? What do I say? What did I do that is making me lose that condition? Now if you are always into that self balancing mode, we will see we are always onto the right direction. In what that viveka in us comes, which clearly tells us how you are connected from the source, how you are not connected from the source. But that only comes when we study ourselves. And the last one is Ishwar Pranidhan, means surrender to God, acceptance. If we accept our life, if we accept who we are, if we surrender our life and our thought process, that means we are surrendering to God. If we don't accept the life, if we don't accept the creation, we don't accept the creator. If we accept the creation, we accept the creator. So Ishwar Pranidhan means surrender to God, acceptance, total acceptance. So these five niyamas, Shach, Santosh, Tapas, Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhan, helps us further move ahead into the field of, the divinity, the field of union. Now with these two, we are now getting ready to sit. And that's where the third step comes on asana. How do we sit now? How do we sit? So our gross body, which is made of tissues, bones, and our subtle body, which is made of mind, which is made of vibrations, also collaborate, also help us in moving towards the source. That is asana. So Patanjali says, Sthir Sukham Asanam. Sthir means steady. Have a steady pose. Sukham Asanam. Sukham means relaxed, comfortable. Because now our gross body has to support, the physical body has to support a mental connection, a subtle connection. So should not do anything in which we are not relaxed, because if we are worried about the relaxing of the body or there is causing some pain, we'll not be able to have that connection inside. So sukham, relaxed, comfortable, asanam, the posture, right? So we should not be in an unsteady phase, we should not be moving in a crooked manner, because the flow of the grace and the divinity is falling from the top. To take the maximum benefit of it, we should sit in a relaxed position, in a steady position, and preferably with the folded legs. Babaji Maharaj has said, because now the lower chakras we have to move towards top, so the pralay starts from the down. So when we fold our leg, we start helping into that process, right? So a Padmasana. Now, what we have done is yama, niyama, and asan, right? Through our conduct and behavior, the scattered mind is slowly coming inside. Now we are also sitting in a posture which helps me in making that connection to the divine. Now let's worry about the energetic body and aligning the energy flow, and that's the pranayama. So this inward turning of the energetic field will strengthen the link of the pranamaya kosha, the energy sheath of the human being. So these are the subtle planes of existence, the mind and the soul. So rather than directing this energy outside, we are directing it inside towards the soul, towards the source, right? So when done well, we bring mental balance, well-being, resulting in good health, because our energetic system is then resonating in tune and in harmony with the universal energy. And we would have seen a lot of breathing exercise, pranayams, which we have done into this program, Yoga for Unity. What heartfulness does is, heartfulness has something we call transmission. And to understand transmission, because it's a beginner course, let's assume it's the essence of the source itself, right? So receive transmission is to receive the essence of the source itself. So when we sit, using this transmission. When we meditate with heartfulness, this transmission automatically directs our attention and naturally flows inwards. So our breath, our system becomes highly stable, leading to lower and lower outward manifestation. Our breathing is regulated naturally as a result of the inward flow of pranahuti. Now, what we have done till now, we have got asana, we have got the energy sheet also, the energy flow also is now regulated. Now we are ready to take the step inside, and that is pratyahara, inner withdrawal. So anyone who is able to check the outward flow of the mind and free it from the bondage of the senses has in fact succeeded in pratyahara. It's not always outside. Pratyahara means inner withdrawal. We stop searching outside, we go within. Why do we do that? We do that because we find a place of rest, calm, repose, peace when we are withdrawing inside. By going within, by settling ourselves, we settle into the center of our being. And also through pratyahara, through inner withdrawal, we develop those inner senses that would allow us to perceive anything on the subtle level. Right now, our senses are becoming more intuitive inside. Right now, we are seeing the inner world more easily because our mind is not scattered; it's slowly coming inside. A good example of it is, if you see, during meditation, right? There are a lot many things going outside. There's ringing of the bell. There are birds who are chirping. There are people who are talking. But a seeker who has practiced meditation and reached the level of pratyahara, he'll be unaffected by it. His senses will not immediately spring outside. His senses will be settled inside, and that is pratyahara. Now our senses are withdrawing inside, and then comes dharan. Dharan is the process whereby the mind holds on to some objects. We are coming inside, our mind is dharan, is settling onto some object and keeps itself in that state. The object of meditation holds on to us. The other things are arrested. It means undistracted. Our mind doesn't goes outside immediately, right? Why does it do so? Because we feel a profound rest. We experience something beyond description. Why? Because we are slowly coming to our natural state, our real state. When we go into our real state, we don't feel like leaving it. Dharan also means the ability to contain, to hold. In this condition of undistracted mind, now the divinity in us starts coming out, starts getting its own, having its own expansion in us, because we have gone to the undistracted mind, because we have achieved this condition of dharan. So a quick recap of the first 6 steps. So yama is the process of removing all the unwanted tendencies, behaviors, and thought patterns. Niyama is the process of infusing noble inner qualities and appropriate attitude. Asana is the focusing of the physical body inwards so that it participates in this evolution. Pranayam is the regulation and stabilization of the energy field, bringing it into alignment and purifying it. Pratyahara is the turning of our attention away from the external pull of the senses. And Dharan directs the flow of thoughts towards the goal and then continues to hold and nurture it. Then comes the magic of meditation, Dhyan. In Dhyan is the name given to the 7th step in Ashtanga Yoga, where the consciousness is fixed on the goal and does not waver. It is almost fixed. In this, the one who's meditating is not there. Only the goal and the awareness of the goal is left. We slowly lose the person who's meditating. That identity slowly gets dissolved. But the goal, the absolute, the reality, and the awareness of the goal, that I am there, is left. Samadhi, this is the last step of Ashtanga Yoga. Here, the meditation becomes very deep. Then the goal alone remains. Even the awareness is not there. We lose our awareness, like a drop merging into the ocean. The drop loses its awareness, but the ocean is there. This is called Samadhi. Then dhyan and samadhi, only there's a difference. In dhyan, the goal and its awareness are there, wherein in samadhi, only the goal is left and the knowledge of reaching the goal also disappears, right? And that's where we call tattvam asi. That is our true form. Now, in Sahajma system of Raj Yoga meditation, we can see there are various steps which we take: yama, niyama, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharan, dhyan, and samadhi. What happens in this meditation is through the usage, and proper usage of transmission, through cleaning, through prayer. There is, when we get connected to the source itself, the qualities of the source starts coming into our hearts. Our heart starts getting imbued with love, and the qualities of yama, that means ahimsa. We don't feel like being violent towards anybody. These things automatically get changed in us because we are connected to the source. So yama and niyama are being followed. Through niyama, we do a cleaning process. Through all those things which are not required gets removed from us, right? Asan, we sit in a very comfortable position. Pranayam, because of the transmission, the breathing automatically gets regulated. Pratyahar, because of the inward pull, our mind automatically settles to the source inside. And then dharan, dhyan, and samadhi. In Sahaj Marg, with the transmission, help of transmission, in few sessions, after few sessions of meditation, we can also experience samadhi. And samadhi also called sahat samadhi. Generally, samadhi is also into three parts. Pashanatul samadhi, like stone-like condition, where our consciousness disappears. We are unconscious of everything. Our senses are imbued, right? We are not aware of anything. Then we are unconsciously conscious, so we are doing it but we are not aware of it, right? And sahaj samadhi, which is the highest level of samadhi, where we are connected to the source in our heart, but we are also working outside, and we are conscious outside. So we are utilizing yoga stha kuru karmani sangam tyakta dhananjaya. So we are stationed into the condition of yoga in sahaj samadhi. Yoga stha kuru karmani, but still we are doing our work on the outside. Yoga stha kuru karmani sangam tyakta dhananjaya. Siddh asiddh samo bhutva. We go over beyond any other attachments. We go over beyond any other knowledge because we are connected to the pure knowledge. We are connected to the absolute. We are connected to a infinite condition. So the modern system of Sahaj Marg and heartfulness meditation diverges from the old path in that Sahaj Marg does not take up the different steps of Ashtanga Yoga one by one separately. Under the Sahaj Marg system, asan, pranayam, dharan, dhyan, and samadhi are taken up simultaneously during the course of meditation of dhyan. In due course, we feel the aspirant is able to concentrate or get into the state of samadhi. Thus, the aspirant naturally proceeds to samadhi, which is the final step of yoga. And the most exalted samadhi can be made possible when yogic transmission guides our consciousness during meditation. So I would like to invite you to experience this heartfulness meditation based on Raj Yoga every Sunday at 9 a.m. in the session Meditate with Daji as part of 100 Days of Yoga, where we are celebrating International Day of Yoga 2021. There are furthermore webinars on efficacy of Raj Yoga, on Dhyan, on Samadhi, which I would request all of you to attend. And thanks for joining this session. My prayers and best wishes for all of us. May we achieve that state of union, the state of oneness in the shortest possible time. Thank you for attending.